Welcome. I'm Tonya Veasey, President and CEO of the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. And today I am honored to welcome you to our first ever virtual Sojourner Truth Project program. We are glad you joined us this morning. The mission of the Sojourner Truth Legacy Project is to increase awareness of the issues affecting African American women in the community, mobilize women committed to engaging in these issues and creating creative change, and building connections of women through our hashtag #SoTrueNetwork. This year, an historic year for the Congressional Black Caucus and for the increased recognition of the impact Black women are having in advancing democracy. The CBCF is proud to present this program dedicated to highlighting the rise of Black women's political leadership. We often think of Sojourner Truth as a powerful orator when we are asked to reflect on her legacy, but her legacy includes so much more. She was a mother, a minister, and an activist. And among her several roles, and through those roles, she carried her family and her community with her as she pressed for change. Today's guests and honorees can certainly say they have inherited her legacy. They are multifaceted women focused on social and political advancement, and they have fulfilled many roles, demonstrating the vital diversity and dynamic work of Black women in politics and beyond. And with all the demands of their time, they have still chosen to be with us today. We are honored that our panelists, honorees, and guests have gathered here in this virtual space, and I can't wait to get started. With that, it is my esteemed pleasure to introduce one of those notable women, the chair of the Sojourner Truth Project, Representative Chairwoman Yvette Clarke.
Let me first of all thank our President and CEO of the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, another boss lady, a woman who has taken the helm of our organization, the foundation, started by the members of the Congressional Black Caucus and taking it to new heights. Tonya Veasey, let me thank you for your leadership. Good morning and welcome, everyone. I'm Congresswoman Yvette D. Clarke, Chairwoman of the Sojourner Truth Legacy Project. I proudly represent the 9th District of New York, Central and South Brooklyn in the United States House of Representatives. As this is Women's History Month, and as it comes to a close, we are reminding the world that Black women's history is women's history too. No name in our history looms quite as large as Sojourner Truth. What's in a name? For Sojourner Truth, it was plenty. The former Isabella Bumfree renamed herself Sojourner Truth so she could testify about the hope that was in her. That hope continues to shine today through this, the Sojourner Truth Legacy Project. It began in April of 2009 with a congressional unveiling ceremony of the permanent display of Sojourner Truth's bust in Emancipation Hall in the Capitol Visitor Center, a project spearheaded by African American women. This bust is the first sculpture to honor a Black woman in the United States Capitol. Propelled by this historic event, the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation and the Congressional Black Caucus women members convened their first event during the 2009 Annual Legislative Conference to celebrate Sojourner Truth and those working to continue her legacy. The reason for the Sojourner Truth Legacy Project is simple and powerful. It is to connect with other Black women, to focus on our concerns and serve as each other's support system as we improve the lives of Black women and advance the global Black community. Over the 12 years since that first event, the forum has focused on bringing together women across generations to address issues such as entrepreneurship and jobs, healthcare, and the advancement of women in the business and government sectors. Through a series of programs over these years, the Sojourner Truth Legacy Project continues to build a dynamic, nationwide, intergenerational network of African-American, Black, and multicultural women committed to harnessing the power of women around the issues important to our lives. Today's first ever virtual program for this forum celebrates the rise in Black women's political leadership. This past year, we have witnessed both unprecedented gains and losses, some of the greatest of both experienced by Black women. Our democracy, our politics, and our entire civil society are forever changed. We know that much work remains, so let's do the work. And let's get ready for what I know will be a dynamic, informative discussion this morning. I am delighted to present a powerful reading of Sojourner Truth's incomparable piece, Ain't I a Woman, by the women of the Congressional Black Caucus of the 117th session. So let's watch.
Well, children, where there's so much racket, there must be something out of kilter.
I think that twixt the Negroes of the South and the women at the North, all talking about rights.
The white men will be in a fix pretty soon. But what's all this here talking about?
That man over there says that women need to be helped into carriages and lifted over ditches and to have the best place everywhere.
Nobody ever helps me get into carriages, over mud puddles, or gives me any best place.
And ain't I a woman? Look at me.
Look at my arm. I have plowed and planted and gathered into barns, and no man could head me.
And ain't I a woman? I could work as much and eat as much as a man when I could get it, and bear the lash as well.
And ain't I a woman? I have borne 13 children.
And seen most all sold off to slavery. And when I cried out with my mother's grief, none but Jesus heard me.
And ain't I a woman?
Then they talk about this thing in the head. What's this they call it? Intellect. That's it, honey.
What's that got to do with women's rights or Negro rights? If my cup won't hold but a pint and yours holds a quart, wouldn't you be mean not to let me have my little half measure full? Then that little man in black there, he says women can't have as much rights as men because Christ wasn't a woman.
Where did your Christ come from?
Where did your Christ come from? From God and a woman.
Man had nothing to do with him.
If the first woman God ever made was strong enough to turn the world upside down all alone,
Women together ought to be able to turn it back
and get it right side up again.
And now they're asking to do it? The men better let them.
Obliged to you for hearing me.
And now old Sojourner ain't got nothing more to say.
The beauty of the Sojourner Truth legacy and story is that it's a story of every Black woman in this country. 170 years later, her words still ring true, that women can and will change the world.
There is no woman in American history that I have admired more than Sojourner Truth.
Sojourner Truth has had an impact on all women, whether they're aware of it or not.
She helped all of us understand it didn't matter your circumstances. You could still win, you could still lead, and you could still fight.
She was just ahead of her time. That's what it made me think of, that what she was saying, some of us could relate to right now.
The impact of Sojourner Truth and what she stood for
was to be outspoken, notwithstanding. Sojourner was not someone who was afraid to speak truth to power. She was fearless in her advocacy and in the fight for justice and equality.
Her advocacy work long predated the passage of the 19th Amendment. She was a pioneer, a trailblazer, and a visionary leader whose shoulders many of us as elected officials stand upon.
We are all women, we are Black women, and we have power to make sure that we are changing systems to uplift everyone that comes behind us.
I think the first thing we have to do is acknowledge our own power, and that power collectively really is unstoppable.
Let me first of all just thank you once again for joining us today. I have the distinct honor and privilege of introducing to each and every one our new members in the 117th Congress. Congresswoman Marilyn Strickland, representing the 10th District of Washington State. Thank you so much for lending your voice to the women and men of the Congressional Black Caucus and to our foundation through the Sojourner Truth Legacy Project. Would you introduce yourself at this time?
Well, good morning, everyone. It's morning on the West Coast in Washington State. It is so nice to see all of you and your beautiful faces. I'm Marilyn Strickland, representing the 10th District of Washington State, and it is an honor to be here. And I want to thank the Congressional Black Caucus, the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, and all of these sponsors and supporters for hosting this. When I think about my journey as a Black woman who is half Korean as well, I think about showing up in spaces where people least expect to see me. And that's really often the story about what it means to be a Black woman. These social, political, and economic systems in which we operate have not always welcomed us into positions of power and authority. But here we are today doing what we can to save democracy, to care for people, to make this country better. And I often say that the Democratic Party's biggest, most loyal, and strongest base are African-American women. And it's our history, it's who we are. We're looked at to be strong, to fully participate, and to move things forward. And people expect us to innovate. And we often break barriers. I was the first African-American woman to serve as mayor of my hometown. I'm the first African-American member of the Washington State delegation. I am now the only African-American woman who serves on the House Armed Services Committee. So we keep showing up, we keep doing the work. And most importantly, we must keep supporting each other. Sojourner Truth was ahead of her time, and we have a legacy to follow. And I remind us that part of our journey of leadership ensures that we are doing what we can to bring others along, the next generation, but also the same generation, women who are around us who want opportunities to lead as well. So thank you for allowing me to be here. I am so proud to be a member of the CBC. And as we talk about making progress in America in the 21st century, Black women are going to be at the root of it because we always have been. Thank you.
Let me thank you, Marilyn. You are Washington State strong, you are Black woman strong, and you bring a unique lens and lived experience to Capitol Hill that is changing the chemistry of the body. We are so happy to have you representing the great state of Washington. And now, without further ado, it is my honor and my privilege to present to some and introduce to others a new firebrand coming out of the great state of Missouri, the Honorable Congresswoman Cori Bush. Please unmute and introduce yourself.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for this opportunity. My name again is Congresswoman Cori Bush. I proudly represent my hometown of St. Louis in the United States Congress. I'm a nurse, I'm a pastor, a community activist, and a Ferguson-made, a community organizer and a Ferguson-made activist, and I'm a single mother and the first Black woman to represent Missouri in the United States House of Representatives. We are at the intersection of a public health emergency, an economic crisis, a racial reckoning happening right now. We need people in Congress who understand these issues personally. And Black women, we've lived these struggles. Running for office, they cared more about my hips, how big my hips were and how dark my skin was, and the way my braids looked, and called it unprofessional. They cared more about that than what I really wanted to do for my community. You know, we're 3 times more likely to die in childbirth because of predatory health, this system that does not care about our pain. While people talk about the recovery of our economy, Black women have not made any job gains. And as Derek Chauvin stands trial for the murder of George Floyd, it's Black women that have been the backbone of our communities as we've lived through trauma after trauma, both living through fear and providing the care to keep our community safe and together. When people talk about Black women voting, they like to talk about that, but it's time we have more Black women leading. We are here to lead. So I'm honored to serve alongside all of these incredible women that you just saw right in Congress, who have been mentors and who have been sisters. And I'm honored to serve the people of St. Louis to fight for our better future. So we're looking to you to come forward. We can't wait to see you move into position. Thank you.
Let me thank the dynamic gentlelady from Missouri for lending her voice and changing the chemistry of the body in which we work. These dynamic women are raising the stakes for our community and raising their voices and advancing very important legislation that centers the lives of the most vulnerable in our civil society. We will be joined, hopefully not too long from now, by another dynamic woman, a new member of the Congressional Black Caucus, and her name is Congresswoman Nikema Williams of the 5th District of Georgia. But at this stage, I know that we have been joined by our leader. And when I say our leader, I'm talking about the gentlelady from Columbus, Ohio. This sister is beyond bad. She is leading the Congressional Black Caucus in our 50th year, and she has taken no prisoners. I believe she is the very first chairperson of the Congressional Black Caucus to actually utter the words white supremacy. So without further ado, it is my honor and my privilege to bring to you my sister, a bad sister, who is leading the Congressional Black Caucus in this year of challenge and opportunity, the Honorable Congresswoman Joyce Beatty.
Let me first start by saying thank you so much to you, Congresswoman Yvette Clarke, for such a gracious introduction and for your whole team of bringing us forward, speaking truth to power, making sure that women, especially across this nation, know who we are and what we represent. I think my timing is good to follow in the footsteps of our new members, hearing them not only speak truth to power, but hearing them tell their stories of how they got here. So I say good morning on behalf of the entire Congressional Black Caucus, on behalf of the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation's virtual Sojourner Truth Legacy Project. It speaks volumes of what we're going to hear and do today. And certainly it is my honor to follow in the footsteps of Congresswoman Karen Bass, who has led us thus far on our way and our journey. I come to you today to say how proud I am to serve as the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. I am proud to represent the great state of Ohio. But today is a special occasion as the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation gives well-earned accolades to Black women leading the way in politics, as we do in virtually every area of pursuit we engage in. it is fitting that we should do so now as we get near the end of Women's History Month. Though as far as I'm concerned, just like Black history, we should be applauding and highlighting the contributions of women every month. And as most of you know, this marks our 50th anniversary of the CBC. We are known as the conscience of the Congress. And what is so exciting today, we boast our largest membership in our history. 57 members, soon to be 58, and then hopefully 59. 26 of them today are strong Black women. And for decades, Black women have been an integral part of this body, beginning early, standing on the shoulders of our 13 founders, 12 men, but one bad sister, Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm, the only woman amongst our founding member. But years later, our numbers grew, and they continue to grow as Black women continue not only to serve, but to lead. To lead when we're talking about the pandemic and the 3 areas of it, whether that is leading in healthcare, 4 nurses in the Congressional Black Caucus, whether that is leading as we fight against the inequality in economics, a sister, Congresswoman Maxine Waters, chair of the Financial Services Committee. And whether we're talking about the social injustices, there we stand locked, latched, and ready to fight for our communities, whether it is the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act, or whether it is the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. We are there, Black women. We just don't break glass ceilings. We lift as we climb. And every day, we encourage and support Black women across this country to run for office. We need more women to serve this country as executives, as governors, and yes, in the House and in the Senate. And we know what can happen because it has happened. We have a sister in the White House, one of our very own member of the Congressional Black Caucus, Vice President Kamala Harris. So this morning, as I bring closure, we spotlight women who have skillfully shaped and advanced our political system during the unprecedented past year. And we have met our new members, and I say thank you, Cori Bush. I say thank you, Marilyn Strickland, and I say thank you, Nikema Williams. Thank you for everything that you are doing and that you will continue to do. And I am proud to say, because of us, our power, our message. And I'm Congresswoman Joyce Beatty, and I approve this message. Enjoy the rest of the program.
Can we get an amen in the chat room? Can we just get an amen in the chat room? Our fearless leader, the Honorable Congresswoman Joyce Beatty of Ohio, has spoken, and I think really encapsulated for everyone viewing today what the Congressional Black Caucus 2021 is all about, and the power of the women amongst us. It's now my honor and my privilege to present the panel today. And we have a powerful panel. The panel of women with us today demonstrate what many Black women do every day. We surpass the limitations others may seek to place upon us through drive, innovation, and persistence. In short, we get things done and do so with determination, hope, and grace. I present to you our esteemed panel. Bishop Leah Daughtry, a nationally recognized organizer, activist, political strategist, author, and faith leader. She serves as presiding prelate of the House of the Lord Churches. Reverend Daughtry is also co-convener of Power Rising, which brings together Black women and girls to leverage their power for the benefit of their communities. New York State Attorney General Letitia James, the 67th Attorney General for the great state of New York, an experienced attorney and public servant who is the first woman of color to hold statewide office in New York and the first woman to be elected Attorney General. Minyon Moore, one of the nation's top strategic thinkers with extensive experience in political and corporate affairs, as well as public policy. She leads the Dewey Square Group's state and local affairs multicultural strategies practices with clients ranging from the Fortune 100 to startup nonprofits seeking counsel for developing strategies that address emerging consumer markets and achieve public policy goals. To lead the discussion with our panelists, I present Dr. Patrice Johnson. Dr. Johnson serves as the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation's Vice President, Center for Policy Analysis and Research, and the Leadership Institute. As a strategic thought partner, she provides executive level direction and management, oversight of policy programmatic strategies for the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. She is developing a world-class leadership institute as well as a public policy and research strategies for the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation to advance our work towards eliminating disparities in the global Black community. You see, Dr. Johnson is a dogged seeker of truth through her scholarship, research, and thought leadership. And I could not be more pleased than to introduce her to you. Clearly, our multi-dimensional host and moderator is the perfect complement to the outstanding women that we honor today. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Patrice Johnson to moderate our panel discussion.
Thank you so much, Representative Clarke. I really appreciate that wonderful introduction. You almost got me shaking here. Thank you all so much for joining us today. I am so excited to have our panelists to celebrate Black women. We have long led a legacy of courage, wisdom, and an unmatched determination to lift each other and to build in our communities. Doing so while weaving through systems of oppression and navigating the intersection of race and gender discrimination. We've watched Black women lead with grace and a touch of style. So this afternoon, we're gonna dive into some topics to continue to celebrate Black women and their legacy. The first topic of discussion this morning is in recognition of the political ingenuity Black women demonstrated in the 2020 election. Both on the ground and at the polls, Black women led multiple efforts in key states, clearly influencing the outcome. Ms. Moore, I will ask you to take the lead on this question. With a clear demonstration of political prowess, how do we now move from the election to developing an agenda that honors the voice of Black women and the needs of the Black community? Ms. Moore, will you take the lead on this?
Sure, thank you. And thank you so much for this invitation. But I have to say, as members often say, may I have a point of personal privilege here. So the fact that I'm on this panel with my bishop, that's a problem. And then on top of that, with a person that I admire greatly, the Attorney General, I feel like I'm the one that's been set up. Why am I even talking right now? It is really disturbing. You think you're shaking. And then we have Yvette Clarke, and then we have Congresswoman Beatty, and the new representative and Cori Bush. I feel like I'm outnumbered here. But having said all that, I am delighted to be among this esteemed panel. Bishop, if I mess up, I'm not going to be down in Brazil today. I'm not going to try to preach. I'm not going to try to tell you the law. I'm just going to tell you that Black women showed up in 2020. We will continue to show up. And we showed up for a number of reasons. One, Like Sojourner's Truth said, ain't I a woman too? And I think we understood our power, especially after we lost in 2016. We understood that we showed up at 98% as African-American women to elect our first woman. We also understood that our counterparts did not show up. And as Leah will probably tell you, at that point, we met with Congresswoman Yvette Clarke, who had a retreat, and she wanted to do an analysis and she wanted to do an assessment of what we could do going forward. Leah said, well, let us wave my magic wand. If I could do that, then we would convene a group of Black women, which we chose to do later that year. But the truth is, I think what we decided was we had to own our own power. Because what do we know when we step in the room? We step in the room as a woman. We step in the room as a Black woman. We own those two things when we go into that room. And then we decided we're going to step in the room with receipts. And the receipts became our voting power. So if I leave with no other message, understand that in 2022, you will have a chance to demonstrate that power again in these Senate seats that are up. We have marginal races that are coming up, and I know that's one of the later questions, but the fact is, owning our power should not be new. We own our power every day we walk in a room, and so that's how we got to where we are, and that's why we're looking at all these beautiful Black women on this screen and those that are listening to us.
Reverend Daughtry, would you like to follow with your thoughts?
Sure. Thank you so much for the invitation, and to my hometown Congresswoman, Yvette Clarke, Brooklyn in the house, Tish James, who I have known for 1,001 years. Brooklyn is everywhere, y'all. We everywhere. Of course, my sister, my BFF, Minyon Moore, and all of the women of the Congressional Black Caucus. It is just an honor for me to be with you this morning. I started my career on Capitol Hill in the days of Gus Hawkins and Maxine Waters and Curtis Collins and Katie Hall. So to watch the Congressional Black Caucus grow to its numbers is just thrilling for me. The best part, before I answer the question, the best part of CBC weekend for me is always when the members come across the stage and we get to see each and every one of them. When I went to the Hill, there were only 18. And now there are 57, and I'm with Congresswoman Beatty. Hopefully we will get to 60 really soon. It's thrilling, it's just thrilling. You know, I think Minyon said a lot of what I would say we have mind meld most of the time. You know, and I think a lot of this is about Black women owning our power. We've seen what we can do and how we can impact not just the communities where we live, but how we influence the rest of the nation, whether it is culture, whether it's economics. We are at the top of the pool. And what we do in our own communities impacts everyone. And we see that, case in point, in Georgia with the election of Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff. What we did in Georgia, what those sisters in Georgia did, with us being the wind pushing them, Latasha Brown and Insay, all of those sisters there elected 2 senators. Yes, it was a sea change for Georgia, but it's a sea change for the nation, as that election will now impact what happens to the people in Montana and Wyoming and Idaho and Iowa and New York and Texas and Ohio. We influence everything with the decisions that we make every day. And I know a lot of people like to say Black women carry this democracy on our back and we always caught in America across the world. I don't think we start out to save America. We start out to save ourselves and our families and our communities. And it just so happens that when Black women save themselves, we save the nation.
Well, that's an amen right there. She just dropped the mic and everything else. There's nothing more to say. Good morning, everyone, and bless you all from New York State and from Boogie Down Brooklyn. I wanted to my Bishop Daughtry, thank you for all that you do. Thank you for being reminding us of our moral center and who we belong to ultimately. I want to thank Ms. Moore for being a walking institution, a political institution, thank you for all that you have done. To my Congresswoman Yvette Clarke, thank you for your leadership. And to Patrice Johnson, happy birthday to you. And to, of course, all of the members of the Congressional Black Caucus. My name is Letitia James. Everyone refers to me as Tish. I am the Attorney General of the great state of New York. And I stand before you because I recognize the power that all of us have in the palm of our hands. I also recognize that when Black women lead, the country wins, and that we have constantly and consistently showed up, not for ourselves and not for the per se power, but because we fight for the common good. And when we fight for the common good, families do better. The economy does better. Our nation does better. We as a whole collectively have closed the wealth gap. We have fought for free and fair elections. And when we are at the table of power, the issues are discussed because we basically handle our business differently than our male counterparts. And so we want to focus on education and voting rights and the broken criminal justice system and environmental degradation and environmental injustice. And the issues go on and on and on. The bottom line is that when Black women show up, when we walk into a room, we're noticed. And when we are not invited, we create our own table. And so it is an honor and a privilege to be in this space and to be amongst all of these women and to know that each and every one of us have the fire in our belly to make a difference. And so I thank you, Dr. Johnson. And again, happy birthday.
Well, that's a birthday gift that I'm telling you, being here with you guys is a birthday gift in itself. So I thank you for that. Next question, the phrase, protect Black women has circulated social media. So even as we think of celebrating Black women today, let's take a quick pause and reflect on what it means to protect us. Just last week, Georgia legislators authorized a sweeping voting law that essentially disenfranchises many vulnerable populations. Some reflected on the new law and paralleled its context to Jim Crow. But further, that Friday evening, Representative Park Cannon, a Black woman, was arrested and charged with obstructing law enforcement. Rep. Cannon's arrest confirms what Malcolm said many, many years ago, that the most disrespected person in America is the Black woman. The most unprotected person in America is the Black woman. And I would love, Attorney General James, if you could speak to how do we protect Black women?
So first and foremost, let me just say that New York will be filing and leading all of the Democratic attorney generals and filing an amicus brief in support of the NAACP, the ACLU, and all of the organizations in Georgia who are standing up against these repressive and regressive laws, which are nothing more than voter suppression. They have nothing to do with fraud whatsoever. It's all about holding on to power. And to sign a bill surrounded by 6 white men in front of a portrait of a former slave-holding state is just unfortunate, and it's unconscionable, and it's racist in nature. And individuals need to understand that no matter what they throw at us, we've got to vote, and we've got to stand in quiet dignity and stand in the face of all of the opposition and all of the barriers that they put their way. We've got to remember our legacy. We've got to remember all of those who stood online and who fought to vote. And so I just want the officials in Georgia to know, the governor of Georgia to know that New York is coming and the Democratic attorney generals are coming, and we're coming strong. And then we're going to push Washington, D.C. to pass that bill, H.R. 1, so that individuals can have a right to vote, which is an element of our democracy, a basic element of our democracy, and we will not be denied. The law that was passed in Georgia is unconstitutional. Unconstitutional. And as they say in Brooklyn, full stop. And we've got to stand together. And it's undeniable that this has been a year of great turmoil. 1 year from the beginning of the pandemic and the shooting of Breonna Taylor, a year when industries dominated by women have been devastated as a result of this pandemic. And the feminization of poverty is a real issue. And what we must do is stand at the front lines and stand together, arm in arm, with no space between us. We must stand together, united and louder, and we must elect women. But before we start electing women, we've got to recognize that it starts at the grassroots. So we've got to organize and organize and organize, register individuals to vote, and then turn out in record numbers and let individuals know that no unconscionable law, no unconstitutional law will stand in our way of democracy, because we are the backbone of this country. And I dare say I am ready, willing, and able to get to Georgia to elect Stacey Abrams as the next governor of the state of Georgia. We have faced unprecedented challenges before. This is nothing. The reality is that we are going to take up space in Georgia, and we're going to turn it deep, deep blue.
Full stop. All right. So do we have a follow-up to that with Reverend Daughtry or Ms. Moore? Do you guys want to comment? That was a mic drop, but let's get it going.
Let the church say amen.
Amen. Amen. Amen. I think we got to recognize that what we are seeing in these legislatures, starting with Georgia, and there are going to be some more coming, is the last gasp of the patriarchy. They know that their time is short. There was a survey released today that said the number of Black people as a percentage of the nation is growing. More people identify as Black today than did 5 years ago. So our numbers are growing. People who identify as Black are growing, and we are exercising our political power in a way that we have not in decades, and they don't know what to do it. So as brown and Black people gain power in this nation, economic, we have more people on boards, building businesses. You've seen today, ladies, if you haven't, Joe Biden nominated 11 new judges, so many Black women. Listen, this is how you change the face of the nation. And as these white boys sit back and see what is happening, they're hanging on by their fingernails because they know we coming for them. And so this is one of the ways they're going to try to stop us. But we Black women, we know better. And you can't stop us. Nothing gets in the way of a Black woman with a made up mind. And we will find a way to get water, to get food. I will be in Georgia on the next election in all of my regalia, my church clothes, my robes, be handing out. Stop me. Try and stop me. And I think all of us are going to try to do that. But that's what we have to do. We know how to do it. You want to change the rules? We'll change the game so that we get what we know we deserve in this country.
So we had over 3,000 registrants for this event, and we are honored that all of you chose to join us this morning. And I want to take a moment to honor those guests with the questions that they submitted. We had several questions, and one of those questions is about intersectionality. How does intersectionality play a role in politics? And what does the term mean for each of you?
So it's important that we discuss intersectionality. Listen, the Black Lives Matter is about, again, protecting the sanctity of Black lives, but it's also about joining with others and allyship. It's about joining with members of the LGBTQ community. It's about joining with individuals in the Latinx community and other communities. It's also about, again, recognizing that race has a lot to do with voter suppression. It has to do with the fact that race has a lot to do with a broken criminal justice system, that the criminal justice system was based on race, going back to the Black codes, the slave codes, Jim Crow, and go on and on and on, up to stop and frisk and broken windows, and now to a situation where you have Black men and women who unfortunately are dying at the hands of police. And so we've got to talk about intersectionality with issues, subject matters, but we also need to join with our allies in the struggle who recognize that Black Lives Matter, also who recognize that in just about every indices, Black people unfortunately lead when it comes to health, when it comes to education, when it comes to a wide range of issues. Unfortunately, we are leading in terms of worse outcomes. And we've got to, again, reverse that. And the best way to reverse that is to elect more Black women, because Black women are really about the business of getting things done. And it's important, and it's very fortunate that we've got Kamala Harris, because again, that stimulus package will go a long way, again, in addressing child poverty. And we know that Black children, unfortunately, disproportionately live in poverty. And we have got to reverse those trends. So again, it's race, it's subject matter, and it's allyship.
And I would also just add to that, you know, our allies have to be courageous in their conversations. They can't just show up when we have a problem. They have to show up when we're not even in the room. The greatest ally to me is the person that's going to speak up when you're not there. The greatest ally is the person who will say Black Lives Matter when the lights are out. And they are really fighting for the fact that we are Black, we are women, but we tend to take the lead, like Attorney General said. We are always the people that are out here fighting for everything and everyone, and many times at our own expense. And we will put ourselves on the back burner like we so often do, even in our own households. But I think right now, with so much at stake with our children, with so much at stake with our healthcare, we can't even afford to even give a pass to anybody anymore. So I stand with everything that the Attorney General said. Plus, I want to emphasize to those who might be different on this call that they must show up with us, and sometimes ahead of us, because we're going to always show up for everybody.
I have a question from the audience, and this, I believe, will be my favorite question of the day. How do we encourage and equip the next generation of Black women to participate in the political process?
Okay, I'll start. Minyon, go ahead. Go ahead, Minyon.
No, please, Bishop, you know I'm gonna defer.
I think those of us who are older, this is a biblical principle. Let the older teach the younger. Mm-hmm. I think those of us we have a responsibility to reach back. We have a responsibility to adopt. We have a responsibility to mentor. And we can't just let these young people, male or female, just be out there finding their own way on a path that we have already been down. Grab a sister by the hand, take her under your wing, encourage her, teach her, listen to her, learn from her while you're teaching. That's the only way somebody did that for me. There were sisters in Brooklyn who said, come here, girl. I'm going to this meeting, come with me. I'm going to this rally, come with me. I'm going to church, come with me. To help me find my way and learn and pour into me so that I could then reach back now and do it with someone else. We do our young sisters a disservice by thinking that they will learn from Google, learn from the internet, when we are living reminders of everything that's gone before us, and we have a responsibility to reach back and bring them with us.
And I just add, you know, because I spend a lot of time, as Leah knows, with young women, young men. And one of the things that I have really discovered in just talking to them is the listening part of them. You have to listen to them because, you know, their language is different. They show up different. Sometimes their truths are different, but our values always seem to be the same. And what I've discovered is they have a yearning for people who have either been through the valley and made it through, and they have a yearning to learn. But we also have to understand that they live in a different generation. They have access to stuff we never had access to. If I had access to the internet and to Twitter and to Instagram when I was coming through, then I would probably be a star. I call them starras. I think we have to teach them the difference, but the different types of activism. And part of what I think the CBC does, and they do it well, not only do they embrace young people, but they do activism through legislation. I mean, when I look at the Attorney General on TV sometime, I literally, when you talk about being a fangirl, I am in awe of the deep well of knowledge she has about the law. And that's preparation. And so I try to say to them, let preparation be your friend. Don't let it be your enemy. And it's okay to study. It is okay to put your mind and your intellect, let it work together with your activism. And so that's really my conversation with them. I love these young people. In particular, I love the young Black women that are coming up behind us. I want to go somewhere and sit on the beach and drink a mint julep. So I want them out here. I want to be out here supporting them.
So let me just say this. Thank you, Minyon, for those kind words. I appreciate it. Listen, you cannot be what you cannot see.
Amen. Amen.
And so we've got to strengthen the pipeline. And for all of those individuals on the chat, and the chat is blowing up, you got to create pipelines in your respective states and jurisdictions. Strengthen that pipeline between our schools, our churches, and the halls of power. And so you've got to talk to elementary girls. You got to talk to middle-aged girls. You've got to go to the high schools. And I got my start because I met with residents of public housing who were ignored, who were locked out of the sunshine of opportunity, who were marginalized and vulnerable, and no one was representing them. They elevated me to the city council and then carried me on their back to public advocate. And then when they wanted to elevate me to the attorney general, they notified all of their family and friends all throughout the state of New York. It was those Black women in their humble homes who lifted me up, because no one was raising the issue about the conditions in public housing. And so I hope to the members of the Congressional Black Caucus that in the next infrastructure bill, you include billions of dollars for residents of public housing all throughout this nation. You cannot be what you cannot see. And we refuse not to be seen going forward. We are here, we will be heard, and we will definitely be seen.
And Dr. Patrice, I just want to make one. Sometimes we make this so complicated, and it's not. Find a sister on your block and say, hey girl, what's your name? What are you doing? How's school? Though some of us have capacity to hire interns, have a dedicated program for Black women interns. Some of us have a school down the block, go volunteer to read for the children. You don't have to create a massive organization. We can do this one-to-one, sister to sister, creating pipelines and relationships for the young women that are coming behind us. So don't sit back and say, oh, I don't do this. And you got a girl on the block that you can grab up, talk to, find a mama, get permission, have a conversation. Each one of us, sister to sister, can build these pipelines and build these relationships for the next generation.
Thank you. As much as I want to continue this conversation, we have concluded the panel discussion, and it is almost heartbreaking.
Oh, come on, birthday girl.
Yes.
Well,
this means you have to have us back, or Minyon and Tish, we have to get together soon and do another one of these.
Yes.
Listen, if I could control time, on my birthday, I should, but hey, let's go ahead and thank Reverend Daughtry, Ms. Moore, and Attorney General James for giving us their time and their energy, their wisdom. We are blessed by all three of you. Thank you so much. And I also want to remind our guests that you can download the program book for today's event and learn more about our panelists and more about our sponsors. We also really appreciate your feedback. You'll receive an email if you can complete the survey, because your feedback helps us to build our next events. And then finally, we are going to have a Creators of Color in the Online Economy conversation in April 22nd, and you do not want to miss that. I am going to turn it over to the lovely Representative Clarke. Thank you all so much for joining us.
Let me thank our moderator, Dr. Patrice Johnson. Let me thank our dynamic panelists. Woo, baby, you all have set this morning off right. If there's a Black woman on this program that has been viewing that doesn't feel empowered today, I think you need another cup of coffee or something, because indeed, we have been fed by our panelists, and they have empowered us through their lived experiences and through their participation this morning to make a difference in the communities in which we live and work. And I just wanted to thank my colleagues for their participation today, our new powerful congressional women who have joined us, as well as my colleagues overall, the chairwoman of the Congressional Black Caucus, Congresswoman Joyce Beatty, and of course, all of the women of the CBC. I received a note, and I want to share with you that there is so much history to how we established the Sojourner Truth Legacy Project. I received a note from Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, and she is absolutely right. Let me correct the record. The Sojourner Truth Legacy was initiated by the work done by two women to bring the bust of Sojourner Truth into the halls of Congress. And that was the Honorable late C. Dolores Tucker, who mobilized women across this nation, raised money, identified two Black women, a Black woman sculptor, and Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, who actually established the legislation to bring the statue into the statuary hall, and they raised the money to do so. Inspired by the work that these Black women done, unsung, unheralded, Congresswoman Carolyn Kilpatrick, Congresswoman Barbara Lee, Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson were the founders of the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. The Congressional Black Caucus Foundation's program that we have engaged in today, the Sojourner Truth Legacy Project. I was their protege, a new member who had just come to Congress. They looped me in. I was the only Black woman elected in my class and have been handed the torch to continue to build this program alongside the foundation. The program that we've had today have inspired over 3,000 participants, and we want to keep you engaged. And so it's my honor to now turn the helm and the closing of this program over to another powerful woman who has embraced this program in a very special way. I think that her lived experience and her leadership is something that has bonded her to the mission of the Sojourner Truth Legacy Project, none other than our president and CEO of the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, Ms. Tonya Veasey.
Thank you, Representative Clarke. Let me just say, whoo-wee, there was so many amens. I'm so glad I was on mute because my team would have been mad at me from interrupting. This has been more than I hoped for. And I just want to say this, Representative Clarke, thank you so much for asking me to take on this project. And as we said, we were going to reimagine this. This is more than I thought we would be able to get out of this 1 hour, but I don't know why I didn't think that these three amazing women would bring so many nuggets to us. I am just completely honored and in awe. I may have to lay down for about 30 minutes before I can continue my day because it was such a powerful discussion. Really quickly, because I know we're running out of time. I want to end by just saying we have had an honor to have the opportunity to exchange these ideas this morning. And it really embodies Sojourner Truth's quote. And I would say, if the first woman God ever made was strong enough to turn the world upside down all alone, these women together are to be able to turn it back and get it right side up again. Sisters, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I want to thank our wonderful audience for joining us this morning as we give flowers to these amazing women who are turning the world right side up again. I want to also thank our audience for the chat. It has been, I can't keep up. It's been very busy. So thank you so much. I want to thank Bishop again, Attorney General James, thank you so much. And of course, Minyon, who I consider a friend and a mentor, even if you don't know it, I'm watching you. I admire you. So thank you so much for being here as well. I would be remiss if we didn't thank our sponsors for today's virtual program. So I want to thank PMI and Prudential. Thank you for partnering with us. We have amazing sponsors that every time we bring a bright idea to them, they are ready to make it help us bring it to life. So thank you. Before we leave, my team has given me 3 instructions, now 4, because they've texted me one more. We want to make sure that we get your feedback, our audience. We want to make sure that we get your feedback. So please scan the QR code to complete the survey. We're constantly wanting to make sure that we are bringing you nuggets, as I call them, that you can go forth and prosper. So please make sure that we get your feedback. Number 2, we want you to follow the CBCF on Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn, and then please friend us on Facebook. We share lots of information about what is going on, not only with the CBCF, but we love to share information on what our CBC members are doing as well. And then number 3, as Dr. Johnson has said, and happy birthday, Dr. Johnson. I had no idea today's your birthday, so I'm gonna call you later and sing happy birthday to you. We want to cordially invite you to attend the Creators of Color in the Online Economy. And that will be a virtual brain trust sponsored by Google on April 22nd at 2 p.m. And for those of you who would like to share this program with others or even watch it again, I think I'm one of those who will watch it again. This will be uploaded to our website at cbcfinc.org. Again, thank you all. Thank you for our panel. Thank you, CBC members who were on the panel or who have logged in as well to participate. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.